Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video. This is part 5 of our series in looking in detail at how to work with the piabx files. In this session we're going to be looking at personalising our piabx files. Perhaps that's a template, creating a new template or updating an existing one, or modifying an existing file that you have checked out from a project. So let's get started. So here we're going to have a look at templates first, and I've got here some blank templates that we use in our methods. I just open up the appointments template, and the first thing we need to understand here is about the password lock. So there is an edit lock that's built into piabx files. If you're using in the new viewer or browser viewing an existing older template built with the early version of piabx, it will automatically be locked for you. And you can unlock that if you want to. But all new files you have the option of having locked or unlocked, or partially locked or unlocked. So this one is locked, and we can see that because it doesn't offer me the ability to add new items to the section. In fact, to any of the sections, that's prohibited here. In fact, if I come and look at the edit, I'll see I don't have control over the section here, and I don't have control over the items within it either. And so that indicates to me that I'm locked out of this particular section. If I come here and look at File, Options, and Password, we'll see there is a password applied here, and I could enter it if I want to change the file. And it doesn't even allow me to add any new sections to this template. You know, the sections are locked, and I can't even add any new ones. So you are just in this template able to fill in the content that's laid out for you. And where tables are used, you can extend those tables with extra rows if you want to, or delete items from the table but not the table itself. Other templates though are built in a slightly different way. So let's have a look at one of those. Here I've got the end stage report template. Now, quite similar menu. Apart from here, you'll see I can add a section to this template or duplicate an existing section. I can't delete the current section or change it or change the items in the current section because they are effectively locked. But I could add new sections. And we'll see if we come up to the password page, that's therefore subtly different. Yes, there's a password lock, but I'm able to add new sections. So this is the way most templates get shipped, because we want people to fill in the things we want them to fill in, and we don't want to tamper with that. If they want to add something extra, they can then add something extra when they have the file checked out. And those things will come in essentially unlocked, and if somebody wants to remove those later, they can do. So to work any further on this, well, firstly we'll have a look at adding and duplicating existing sections. So let's find an existing section we're interested in. We'll start off with this one at the top, Project Manager's Report, and I can simply come into Edit and Duplicate section, and you'll see next to Project Manager Report I have a one called New. Now it has exactly the same content in it, but of course it's a different section, so it has a different heading. And now when I come to edit, we'll see actually I can edit lots about this particular section, including deleting it, and the items that are within it as well once I have them selected. If I select an item, you see I have full edit control over that item as well. So that's pretty straightforward. Duplicating, the same thing happens when we do add new, but we just get essentially an empty one at the end. So let's do that, add section. And here's our empty section at the end. It comes with a standard text box so that we can see the section and what's in it. But of course we can change these items as we go through. Now of course if we wanted to work on changing some of these other sections, we would first need to remove that password lock. So let's just come and have a look at that. So I'm going to come back to options and password. Now of course you have to know the password to be able to do this, and I do in this case. And you'll notice when I unlock that, it's not completely unlocked. We haven't removed the password. It falls into a sort of temporary open position like this, where I'm now able to change things like these options here, or go and, as we'll see in a minute, delete some of the existing sections. But that my changes, when I press save and close the file, it will reapply the same original password lock to this file. So that means if I don't, if I forget to put the password on, I might put the template out inappropriately open, but this doesn't allow me to do that. So it will automatically reapply that same password for me when I close the file. If I want to completely remove the password and make it a completely open file, or put a different password onto it, then I would of course remove the password and then apply a new one like this, and I would set the password and retype it for confirmation. So that's pretty straightforward. For now, we're just going to leave that open in this particular case, and now you'll see if I come to one of the previously locked sections like this, I'm able to, for example, delete that whole section if I want to, or move them around, or do all of those other things that we saw earlier. So that's dealing with sections. You can have as many sections as you want within your template. You can order them in whatever way that you want. As we saw earlier, you can move them around. When it comes to so let's go back up to here, edit section. In section properties, we have here the ability to name our section. So this is obviously called Project Manager's Report, and we can define the text that we want to go with the mandatory field flag if we're using that. And here's where we can set that option that when the password is applying, whether we want people to be able to manage the sections or not. So I could make this section a manageable one, so if I reapplied the overall password, the other sections wouldn't be able to be changed, but this one could be added, removed, deleted, extra content put into it, etc. So normally most template sections are run without the can manage. Now, section IDs have to be unique and they have to be programmatic, so no spaces, no special characters, no apostrophes, things like that, and they must be unique within the entire file. So you can't have two section ones, for example. You could of course have two things called the same thing with the same display name, but the section IDs would have to be different. And obviously we can do that to any of the sections that we've got here. Add, we've talked about. Insert, we'll insert a section at the current point rather than an add, we'll put one in at the end. Duplicate, we've seen. Deleting sections, we've talked about. Moving them in the order, that's all fairly straightforward. So the main blocks are pretty quick and easy to set up as sections. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of what's actually in the section itself. You can click on an item to edit it if you want, edit the item's properties, and this one's obviously a standard sort of text field. Again, we've got a display name. These again have to be programmatic and unique across the entire file. Sorry, the IDs have to be programmatic and unique. The display name is just a display name. We've got type here for the various different ones. So this is a text box, and this is by far the most commonly used one. We'll work our way through some of the list of some of the others in a minute. You can apply a display format if that's relevant, for example, dates or numbers, etc. And here you'll see you can show whether the mandatory flag is set against that or not. And you can also make these sections read-only, so that they're just for information. The users can't edit them, and you might do that with guidance text, for example. And you can also make these exportable. So we'll have a look at a template in a minute which has got some exportable sections in. When they're exported back to the main system, they will use this ID as their variable name. So you need to make sure that this is a unique name then for the entire system in terms of the variable it's going to create. So for example, you don't want to create something called project_manager because that's already a property that you're probably using somewhere else. In the other tab here, we have the ability to set the size of this box. If you set 0, you get a standard width, a standard maximum width. We've got alignments we can use here as well, and If we're going to use a thing with static text, so this item here above is static text, we can include that static text in, of course, this form here. So pretty straightforward to edit one of those. If we want to edit, for example, the static text, we need to do something slightly different to pick that up, because of course it's not selectable in the way that I can click into the text box here. We come up here to edit and show section items, and here we can see the static text item. So once we've clicked on that, we can edit that, and in fact this may often be the easiest way to access things in general, because you can change the orders round and edit them, delete them, etc. So if we edit that, you see this is a static text item. It doesn't therefore have a display name. We could have said notes or something, but in practice usually we don't bother with that. And we can see the static text here, so we could change that if we want to, like that. And that will then appear here in the static text. So if we're adding new items to our section, we're going to come to Edit and Add Item. And you'll see it automatically adds a clone of the prior one. Because often you've got the same sort of information in a form. And I can then come in and change that. So I'm going to get Edit Item Properties. And we can change that to a different type of thing. So we could change that to for example, an image, and that now has an image type, and we've got the controls for uploading images. Now in here, if we want to, we can change the default sizes of this image so that our template always has the image at the same size, unless the user has then changed it, of course, when they add their image. But it's about prompting things into the right sort of arrangement, because sometimes you might add very large, people might add a very large image, but you only want it to appear small in the final document. Other types that we might use, let's have a look at these then. So we've got list. List allows us to simply type in the items we want to have in our pick list, and they can be anything we want them to be, as long as they're text or numbers. So let's just have an example of that. So we can just separate each item by with a carriage return. So we've got things like that, and that's going to then appear in our pick list here. Very simple to set up, very good for standardizing content, which is something we're usually very keen to do in a template. So let's have a look at another type. So as well as list, we've got static text, and we looked at an example of static text a minute ago. We've got some operators like Boolean, and we can put one of those in like this, and that then gives us a tick box. You'll see that it puts the entry item on the other side rather than as a title. And we can have a whole set of those if we want to, and we use them, for example, in roles to identify which roles are being filled. Let's go and have a look at another one then. So we've got some number options here, real and integer. We'll go with integer to start off with, and that allows us to type in our number. Fairly obvious sort of thing. Of course, when we're doing this, we're going to want to probably set a format, display format on that, and we use the standard things that we might do in Excel as well. So we'd go something like that as our display format. In this case, it's not going to be any different, but if we make our number much bigger, that will be formatted when it comes to previewing the file later on, because of course most people, this is an edit, so an entry or edit mode. Most people are going to be previewing or viewing to read the file or the printed file. So let's keep coming through them. We've then got date as well. So if we change that to be date, we see that we've got a date picker showing now. And in fact, the first thing we do with the dates here is we switch them on, and then we can see the date that we've selected. So it can remember that date, but you can show whether it's displayed or not. And people use dates, quite a lot. Rather than typing something in, you've got the picker there instead. So let's change this one again, and we'll go. Well, we've looked at images already. Link just converts something into a clickable hyperlink. So you have to put in, of course, something that's a valid link type, like www.bbc.co.uk, something like that. And it will just convert that into a clickable link in the previewed file. Now, variable is an interesting one because variable allows you to take one of the pieces of data that's been injected into the piabx file, normally on checkout. So we might inject the project name, the project manager, the status of the project, its project code, things like that, into the file on checkout. And then this allows you to display that on the face of the file. So we go choose variable, and then we'll define which variable we want. So in this case, we might go for desk, which is the project description. And there it will then show me, and you see that's grayed out because the users can't ever edit that, but they can see that. So it allows you to feed data forwards to the into your files from previous locations. In fact, from anywhere in the properties model, you can. We talked about export earlier, so you can export content out of here, and then you can feed it into future files if you want to, or any of the other properties that are in the property model. In fact, if we are exporting files, we'll be properties, we'll be able to see them up. In fact, we'll go and find a different file which has got that in to have a good look at that instead. So just working through those items, they're pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, you can change the size and location of those and the alignments and that sort of thing to get that set up exactly how you want it. So let's go and find another example. I'm not going to make any, save my changes to this document. And we're going to go and find one which does use an export. So this is the mandate, and the contents of this field, general intro, it tells you will be saved into the main system as a property called project_intro, and then that will be fed into the other templates further through the project. So if this was unlocked, we'd be able to go and see that information here. So let's just unlock again. But here I'm going to use the temporary measure. So when I come back here now and edit item properties, we can see this is ticked for export, and it's going to create the property, as I say, using the ID of it here, so project_intro. Now actually, back up here in our options, we've got a helpful display of all the files or all the properties that are going to be created by this file on check-in. So you can find them nice and easily. You can see what they are without having to go through one at a time looking for them. So that's showing us that there. So that's exporting, and we've seen about the import as well. In fact, we generally have our template set up like this to receive all of the inputting ones in a separate reference details table at the end. But of course, you can drop them in anywhere you want to throughout the file. Let's have an explore in here a bit further about some of those other items then, so that are in this options form. We also here have CSS for the preview, so it allows you to change. You've got a default set, but you can change the color schemes that are used in the preview. And also the print styles. If you have corporate fonts you want to use, etc., you can change those items in here. Those are the main ones we need to think about currently. But then up here in options we have, in edit mode, once the file itself is unlocked and there's no password protection on it, you'll also be able to access these items at the bottom here. So variables is showing me the variables that are being fed into this file from the main system, and these are the ones that I can obviously pick up to inject using variable onto my form. So these are the ones here that will be matching this list. You saw me set up DESC, desk, which is the project description earlier, but you can do this with any of the other ones if you want to. And you can also use those in other interesting ways. So I'm just going to take, well, we reuse, in fact I'll go and get one from the main project to show you that in a second. We're going to reuse these variables if we want to also into our headers and footers. So headers and footers are quite interesting. We obviously, as you can see here, we have the text of the header and the text of our footer showing, and we can just change that by typing into here if we want to. We can also add an image which will become our logo and be automatically put in that top left corner. Now with this header and footer you can also inject those properties into here as well if you want to. So to do that I'm going to go and get, again I'm not going to save that, I'm going to come and show you how that really works on a proper file. So if I check this file out, we'll see that it has, in fact I'll just come and unlock it again. You know, and if you're not worried, I've spent quite a lot of time in this session unlocking things. If you're not particularly precious about the sections that are in your templates, don't bother locking them. That's absolutely fine. But your users will then be able to change everything in the way that they can with Word files. And one of the benefits of piabx file is you can lock that stuff down if you want to. So you know, you've got a thought process to go through there about how much effort you want to go into. So we can see the variables here, and we can see what's been injected from the project as that content. And that's going to be therefore displayed for us in here, reference details. So we can see that showing through. Here's our project intro that's been fed forward from our mandate. We saw that mechanism earlier. So if we let's come back to here and show you that again. We can see those different pieces of content being fed forward and appearing in each of the files. Now I can use those also if I want to on my headers and footers. So if I want my project name to appear in the header or the footer, I can just come to edit that, headers and footers, and we use a standard tag which is underscore underscore, and that was name, underscore underscore like that. And you'll see it's now showing project gamma up here, which is my project name. So if I wanted to, I could, you know, put some spaces in or a tab or something and go project name colon, and the project would show there. So this means that we can get some of this standard sort of quality assurance information when we come to print this actually onto the headers and footers of our printed versions of the file, which is often quite a popular thing to do. So that's really quite neat. You can do that with any of the variables in here using the underscore underscore mechanism to set that. So that's quite a comprehensive look through personalizing of files. You can do more here in the viewer app than you can do in the browser. So in the browser, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a minute, but just so that you understand, you can't access the password, you can't access things like headers and footers. Those were only done here in the viewer because we expect people that are setting up new template sets for projects will be using the viewer, which is a bit more comprehensive, and working in a desktop environment to set all those up. Once they're happy with them, of course, they're going to put them in the method template, and the project will create all those files and hook all these properties together and all the rest of it. And then people might be doing minor changes to the sections they have permissions for in the browser, rather than wholesale structural changes in the way that we've been looking at here. Okay, so I hope you find that helpful. The next and final session in this series is going to be looking at that more limited set of personalizations that we can do in the browser. Thank you very much.